The Oklahoma City Thunder lose Chet Holmgren for an extended period of time. And despite their amazing start to this season, now it puts a lot in question on where the OKC Thunder are going to rank over the course of the season. We'll talk a little bit about that, plus Giannis Antetokounmpo and his recent comments on the state of the Milwaukee Bucks and reported trade interest around him. And we're going to talk about the trade rumors around Jimmy Butler. All that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm one of the hosts here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it for today. I want to start off with the injury to Chet Holmgren. This is really unfortunate. The OKC Thunder were one of the favorites at the beginning of the season to definitely go far in the playoffs, and many people looked at them as maybe even the favorites in that Western Conference to come out. Now, despite their 8-2 start right now, they have a tied record with the Phoenix Suns and with the Golden State Warriors in that Western Conference. The OKC Thunder were already dealt a bad hand at the beginning of the season with losing Isaiah Hartenstein before even the regular season started. And while Chet Holmgren has really stepped in and had a great start to his season for this OKC Thunder team, in a lot of ways putting up almost MVP caliber numbers, the Thunder now lose him for 8 to 10 weeks due to a pelvic injury, and this really sucks, man. It's really unfortunate. I'm sorry. Right iliac wing fracture is what the exact injury is. It's going to put him out at 8 to 10 weeks before he's even reevaluated, and it really sucks to lose him with this. He was averaging 18.1 points per game, 9.2 rebounds, 2.2 assists, shooting the ball 51% from the field, and just showing all the bit of signs of the leap that you wanted to see from Chet, from year one into year two. And it's really unfortunate to lose him for an extended period of time while Isaiah Hartenstein is already out and probably not coming back towards the end of the calendar year. This now puts the Thunder in a situation where they don't really have a lot of big man depth to take and step in to the role of him. Yes, they have Ousmane Dieng there, but this is a young, unproven player, a 6'9", 185 pounds, not going to replicate very much of what Chet Holmgren does. You have Kendrick Williams as well that's there, but again, 6'6", 210 pounds, right? And he's typically a small forward, so the Thunder are probably going to go considerably small here, and that definitely changes the way that they play basketball. Now, there's nothing to say the Thunder have all the assets in the world. Do they make a move? Do they try to do something to bring in some talent to help them stay afloat now? The Chicago Bulls have a Nikola Vucevic who's playing pretty well if you can take him off our hands. But outside of that, Chet has just been really important to what this OKC Thunder team has done over the course of the season, and it's really unfortunate to be in a position where you got to lose that guy at the early part of the season, 10 games into the season. And they have two major injuries to two players that were supposed to be in their starting lineup. Now, the good thing about the Thunder is they're still a very talented team. They still have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander there. They still have that perimeter defense that is nothing less than amazing. And so will they be able to stay afloat enough, right? That's the question. They're definitely probably not going to stay at the top of the Western Conference with losing Chet, but they still have a lot to compete in the West up until that point. You get Isaiah Hartenstein back, you get Chet Holmgren back, and then you're hoping that you have relative health after that point to really, to stay there. And so we'll see what happens, man. It's really unfortunate that this happened to the OKC Thunder, man, especially in the game. They were against the Golden State Warriors. They ended up losing that game. And it's just how basketball goes, unfortunately, sometimes. People don't stay healthy. And so how you overcome that, the next man up mentality, this is a front office that has been very smart over the years as well. And maybe they can find something to do to stay afloat there. And we'll keep monitoring it. But it really is unfortunate to lose Chet Holmgren at this early part of the season. With the season that he was having on top of that, it's really unfortunate. But, that's how the way the cookie crumbles. We'll see how they adapt. The OKC Thunder, like I said, still have a lot of talent on that team. And we'll just see what the future holds for them. Now, another player that went down over the course of the weekend as well that we didn't get to cover is Zion Williamson is out now indefinitely with a hamstring injury. And this is just unfortunate. The Pelicans are already off to a fairly slow start on this season. They've already lost DeJounte Murray after the first game of the season, and they just keep getting hit. They did get some positive news that Trey Murphy III could be making his debut at some point this week, which is really good. They need him. He's probable for today's game against the Nets. But when you look at it, they've lost Herb Jones, a very important part to their defense. Their defensive identity was even, reportedly going to play some small ball center. CJ McCollum's out for an extended period of time. He's expected to be out 2 to 3 weeks. You then got DeJounte Murray, he's out 4 to 6 weeks. And now you got Zion Williamson, who's out for an indefinite amount of time. Now, maybe that's going to be, sooner rather than later. Shams did say that he will be reevaluated in the coming weeks, but this is just, the Pelicans, who were hopeful coming into the season, kind of figured some things out about their roster. And every time they get an injury, I say the same thing, right? Is that Brandon Ingram is going to get a lot of opportunity to cook. And if they are trying to showcase Brandon Ingram to move him, to maybe get some more depth here at some positions of need, Yves Missy has been pretty solid for them so far this season. He started 5 games already. This is one of the guys that was marked as one of the most raw rookies. That's why he fell to the end of the first round, to get an extended opportunity to really to acclimate to this game. But overall, I mean, the Pelicans sit in a place right now where they have been completely ravaged by injuries. The Pelicans, the OKC Thunder, the Philadelphia 76ers, who lost Tyrese Maxey, there are a lot of major injuries around the NBA at this early part of the season. And yes, while injuries are part of the game, they just come with the NBA game. It really sucks to see teams ravaged this much this early. But hopefully that may mean that these guys are going to be more healthy towards the end of the season. Knock on wood, of course, in some of those cases when it comes down to that. But, we'll see. I just wanted to mention the Zion Williamson injury as well, because it is a major one that we missed with the coverage over the weekend. But another thing that happened over this weekend is Giannis Antetokounmpo and his brutal honesty following a loss to the New York Knicks on Friday. When asked by a reporter, after it, he's about his future, he says this: "Hey man, if you don't want to be here, you can leave." He also asked this: "Did we compete in the previous game? Yes. Did we compete in the 2 previous games, Cavs and Cavs? Yes. Did we compete today? No. If you don't compete your ass off, you're not going to win the game. You have to at least give yourself a chance." And so, Giannis Antetokounmpo's frustrations keep being the story here, and a lot of people are asking themselves, how much longer is this going to be the case? Well, we did have from Mark Stein. He came out and talked about teams starting to prepare and get ready for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but also added some clarification on how Giannis can get to the market, saying this. This again from Mark Stein: "No rival team expects the Bucks, even amid a 2-7 start, to show any willingness to discuss Giannis Antetokounmpo trades at this early juncture of the season. It is understood quite early in 29 other front offices that Antetokounmpo is only ever going to be made available for trade if he pushes for it. But a handful of teams out there have certainly begun planning for such an inevitability, and in some cases have already let the Bucks know that they will be ready to talk trade if team officials ever reach that point, even if Milwaukee has zero interest in such discussions as we speak. Teams are ready." And I think everybody's reading the tea leaves here that this Milwaukee Bucks team is probably not going to turn this thing around. It's probably not going to be happening for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, you look at the Bucks, they have right now a 2% chance, I think, to make the playoffs. They sit at 2-8 on the season. It's been nothing less than a disappointing season for them. And everybody is circling, people smell blood in the water. And now the vultures are out circling, waiting to see if the Milwaukee Bucks do something like make Giannis Antetokounmpo available in trade talks. But I love that Mark Stein has a shot of reality here. It's not going to be that the Bucks do it because the Bucks look at it and say, we got to move Giannis. It will only come via Giannis going to the team and basically requesting a trade. Now, what point does that get to happen? A lot's been made over the last few years over Giannis, mainly because of Giannis's own comments in regards to the state of his team and what would need to happen for him to even be able to re-sign there, things like that. And so make no mistake about it. Giannis has been very clear that he wants to compete for titles. And if he's not competing for titles, he's going to question what is he doing and where is he at. And so at a time period where, of course, you got Jaylen Brown calling Giannis Antetokounmpo a child for pulling back the handshake and things like that. But this is a player right now that is upset. And he's frustrated and probably disappointed. He re-signed with this team after they traded for Dame Lillard because he thought that this team gave a window. And it looks like that window is not open. And it's a lot of criticism naturally coming to the Milwaukee Bucks for what they did with this franchise, moving on from Adrian Griffin, Giannis Antetokounmpo's own things. And at the end of the day, man, they just got to decide what it is. Now, Giannis, after the diss by Jaylen Brown calling him a child, he says this: "Oh, that's what he said? Dang. It is who I am. I play the game with fun and joy. I try to surround myself with young people so I can stay young myself. I like to be around my kids and nieces a lot. I'm just going to continue to be me. If I'm called a child, then so be it. If I have another opportunity, I'll do it again. I love that Giannis is really standing 10 toes down on what he is and who he is as a person. Now, that doesn't mean that it means that you're perfect in any sense of the world. But listen, where the Bucks are is in large part due to the team. It's in large part due to coaching. Giannis has been putting up numbers, right? Make no mistake about that. But Giannis can only elevate a team so much. And, when it comes down to that, yeah, Chris Middleton's out, all these type of things. But Giannis is averaging 32 points per game almost, 12 and a half rebounds, almost 13 rebounds, 5 assists on 60% shooting. Giannis is doing it. And so Giannis at being 29, starting to get to that place of his career where people start realizing that their basketball mortality is right around the corner. It makes sense that Giannis Antetokounmpo sits in a place right now where, listen, he's tired. Giannis is tired, and he wants to compete. And nobody, and I wish that more players would be louder about the fact that they want to compete. They want, if their organization, if their franchise isn't doing things that show that they are as willing to compete as the players out there on the court, as your franchise player, yeah, you have the right to ask for a trade at that point. And we'll see where this leads Giannis and where it leads his time with the Bucks. But a lot of criticism are coming the Bucks' way. You got Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce recently, former players who won a title with Doc Rivers, talking about things with the Milwaukee Bucks. Paul Pierce saying this: things ain't looking good, I'll tell you that. Because you bring in Doc, you replace Adrian Griffin, you bring in Doc because you feel Doc can get over the hump. And Kevin Garnett saying this: they not responding to him, P. That alone says so much about the state of the Milwaukee Bucks. You brought in a coach that was there to help get you over. Like, the players, they didn't like Adrian Griffin despite the winning record and things like that. You brought in Doc Rivers, who was there to advise Adrian Griffin. He comes in, he takes over the job, and now those players aren't responding to him either. At some point, and it may be both, you either have to make a change at coaching or you got to make a change with your roster. And the Milwaukee Bucks sit in a place right now that if they do, if Giannis Antetokounmpo requests a trade, the Bucks better go into asset acquisition mode, because that's the only hope they have left. They've never really been a big free agent destination because of where they are. They haven't always been a franchise that competed. They got Giannis, and Giannis being able to turn into what he turned into helped that team go so far, right? And eventually win a title. But this is a franchise that if they lose Giannis and he asks out, that's it. Unless they get lucky and draft well again and rebuild well and hit on a superstar, it's not looking good for the Milwaukee Bucks. And they're always going to be looked at as what they decided to do as far as moving on from Adrian Griffin. But it is what it is. They made their bed, now they got to lay in it. And we'll see where this leads the Milwaukee Bucks, and we'll see if they can turn this thing around. It's not looking good. But from one player that could request a trade to another one that a lot of teams are waiting to see what's going to happen with is Jimmy Butler. Now, this one came out around yesterday as well, that the Spurs have been named as a dark horse to potentially trade for or to pursue Jimmy Butler. Now, the place that the Spurs are in, it's really interesting if they try to make a move for Jimmy Butler, because they've acquired a lot of older players after being a younger team and things like that. Now, they have the thing going on with Pop and all that, but they're 4-6 on the season, and they can need some toughness. And maybe Jimmy Butler's the guy to bring out some of that toughness in Wemby. Now, we've seen Jimmy Butler, like, you got to have a specific roster with a specific mindset. But to hear from Brett Single, who came out and said that the Spurs are watching the situation revolving around Jimmy Butler. A lot of teams are, right? I think that's what it comes down to. A lot of teams right now are. And it said this: naturally, everything will be decided by what the Heat do with Butler. Various teams, including the Houston Rockets, Golden State Warriors, and Los Angeles Lakers, have expressed interest in Butler dating back to the offseason. One executive named San Antonio Spurs as a dark horse landing Butler if he hits the trade market due to their young core highlined by Victor Wembanyama. And so, I guess we'll see what happens there. Like, the Spurs are an interesting case scenario because they do have picks. They do have some contracts that they can move. Clearly, at this point, Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler are at a crossroads of what to do with Jimmy Butler's future and his career. And the Miami Heat sit in a position where if they need to pivot and go to a different place with their roster to build around Bam, maximize Tyler Hero, go younger with the players they have in Nikola Jovic down there, Jaime Jaquez, who they drafted, a lot of players, the Khalil Ware, who they drafted as well, who haven't really been playing a lot. They have a young core that they can go forward with. But it really comes down to, does Pat Riley want to risk that chance, or does he want to hold on to what he has to try to make something happen? I personally think that this thing's leading to a divorce at some point, and you just got to decide on what you want to do with your roster at that point, and we'll see what they decide. But, the Spurs monitoring the Jimmy Butler situation, I expect a lot of teams to be monitoring the Jimmy Butler situation, and we'll just see what comes out of that. Now, last topic before we go, I want to talk about JJ Redick standing on business, man. JJ Redick decided to shake up his starting lineup, moving D'Angelo Russell to the bench. And since that time, D'Angelo Russell has actually responded really well to it, right? And JJ Redick said this. He praised the professional approach that D'Angelo Russell has had. Even D'Angelo Russell, who, initially was mentioned that he may not want to come off the bench. He had some adversity to coming off the bench. He's responded well with performing. And I still think that you may have to eventually look to move D'Angelo Russell personally. That's my personal opinion with that. But D'Angelo Russell's playing some good basketball coming off the bench for this Los Angeles Lakers team. And so you look at the win against the Toronto Raptors after moving to the bench, 19 points, going 7 of 13 from the field, and they got a win over the Toronto Raptors, 131-125. But the thing that I like about this the most is that JJ Redick continues to surprise me as a rookie head coach. He came in with the system. He came in a rotation. He stuck to that. He's now moved off that rotation when they faced some adversity after the losing streak that they had. And that was really good to see as well. But overall, you got to look and watch this team and decide, what is this team going to be, right? And so now, after making some initial changes to what they were, 2-game losing streak that they had to the Detroit Pistons and to the Memphis Grizzlies, they now have won 2 games over the Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, yes, both those teams have their own issues, right? I want to be clear here. Toronto, they're not a team. They have a 19% chance right now to make the playoffs, so there's that aspect of things. But overall, this is a team that is still trying to figure it out. And JJ Redick has shown an ability to not be afraid of maybe the reactions from players. He is standing on business. And as a coach for that Lakers team that has been so drastically all over the place over the couple years, and coaches go there to get to become the scapegoat, JJ Redick is owning what he can as being the coach of the Lakers. And I gotta love to see it. I don't know how much success that the Lakers team is going to have in the long run, not necessarily predicting them to go on a playoff run or anything like that quite yet, but they are doing some solid things as far as JJ Redick is setting a tone. He's setting a tone. He's setting an expectation there as the Los Angeles Lakers coach, and we got to see how this thing is going to continue for him. And, overall, we'll see where that thing develops and how it keeps going. But, the Lakers are trying to figure it out, and you got to give them some credit for figuring it out on the fly, what they want to be, who they want to be. And, I'm not too mad at it at all, but you guys can let me know how you feel down below. Before we go, I do want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, mainly because they're coming up against my Chicago Bulls tonight. But the Cleveland Cavaliers are 11-0, and they've done it historically. They have played really good on both sides of the ball, being top 10 in offense, right outside the top 10 at number 11 in defense as well, as far as points allowed per game. This is a team right now that is killing it. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down. It's somebody different every night. And Donovan Mitchell has not had to be the savior. You've seen Evan Mobley do it. You've seen Darius Garland do it. And what the Cleveland Cavaliers have been showing here so far is really good, sound, executing basketball. And so with that said, man, they have some things. They have some things that they need to prove right before I would have them pegged as being a team that can come out the Eastern Conference. But this is a team that you can't count out of that, right? You cannot look at this team and say, oh, well, they're a good regular season team, but they may not do it in the playoffs. I just got to see it from them. This is a good basketball team. This is a sound, complete basketball team. And they've been getting better year after year. And you look at the way that Evan Mobley and Darius Garland have grown so much in these seasons for the Cleveland Cavaliers. If this maintains, and this Cavs team is really empowering a guy like Darius Garland, you hear it how they talk about Darius Garland, right? This Cavs team, you got to question yourself, how much longer could this run go, right, for the Cleveland Cavaliers? That's a huge question here, is how far can they take this? And right now, you look at the Cavs, there's some doubt about, have they been tested? Have they been this? I had those questions myself for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But then you look at what they did last week, right? You look at what they did and who they had on their schedule. They beat Toronto. They beat Detroit. They beat Washington. They beat New York. They beat Los Angeles. They beat Orlando. They beat Milwaukee, right? But there's still some major tests coming for this team. Now, this week, they face Chicago twice this week. They face Philadelphia 76ers, and they face the Charlotte Hornets. But then the week after that, they face the Boston Celtics. So as the competition keeps getting better, you got to ask yourself, but they've shown an adaptability to where I'm ready to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, we got to see how long they're going to sustain this. We got to see that. We got to see when they come up against the better teams in that Eastern Conference. But the Cavs, they're showing a lot, and we're going to see how it continues to develop for this Cavs team. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys next time I feel like making a video, probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.